Do you remember the Oklahoma drill? Maybe you've heard of
Oh,
it.
yeah. Brutal stuff.
Right. I mean, it was this football practice drill, players just crashing into each other, helmet to helmet, over and over.
And the coach is yelling, walk it off.
Exactly. Pain was seen as progress. Injury meant you were doing it right. Sounds wild now.
It really does. And the physical cost, those lifelong injuries, it's undeniable. It was malpractice, physical malpractice.
We all see that now, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's outlawed. Coaches get actual training in biomechanics, risk assessment. We look back and shudder.
We do.
But what about harm that? Well, that doesn't leave bruises. What if it's quieter, more subtle, but just as damaging to someone's core sense of self?
That's exactly where we're going today.
Yeah, today we're diving deep into something called linguistic malpractice, specifically in the neurodivergent coaching world.
And our focus really is on gestalt language processors, GLPs. The big issue, the malpractice we're seeing, is when coaches get it wrong. Well, they misinterpret GLP. They see it as, I don't know, trauma or a compulsion, maybe a deficit, something broken.
Instead of what it actually is.
Exactly. Instead of recognizing it as a distinct linguistic operating system, a valid foundational way of processing language.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that, this epistemic harm, as the source calls it, injury to how you know yourself.
Yeah, and we need to look at the branding trap online. It's huge.
Right, and scrutinize what credentials actually mean here. What are the real-world consequences for people?
And ultimately, maybe picture what good, ethical, truly informed coaching for GLPs could actually look like.
So to do this, we're leaning heavily on some really insightful work.
We are. We're drawing from Misunderstood on Purpose. When Coaching Becomes Malpractice by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD. It's incredibly clarifying on this whole issue.
Okay, so let's unpack this. There's no broken bone, no limp. How does this malpractice show up, this emotional linguistic harm?
Well, the source puts it really well. It's quieter, it shows up as things like identity confusion or this deep internalized mistrust. And maybe just the slow erosion of one's voice, like it's being crushed under someone else's story about you.
Wow. Can you give a concrete example?
Sure. Think about this. Telling a GLP their way of expressing themselves, maybe through vivid metaphors or scripts, is obsessive.
Instead of just expressive.
Right. You fracture something, as the author says, something sacred, or saying that looping, metaphorical, script-heavy speech is maladaptive, wrong, broken.
Rather than seeing it as its own system, a valid system.
Precisely. And look, the author's clear this isn't always like intentional malice. Often it stems from, systems that erase us.
Systems that erase us.
Yeah, systems that mistake clarity for conformity. They want things neat, easily measured, maybe, even if it misses the actual meaning for the person.
That idea, mistaking clarity for conformity, really hits home. It feels like it connects to broader issues, too.
It absolutely does.
Like in the education system. The source mentions the whole science of reading debate.
The phonics-heavy approach.
Right, which is held up as the dogma. But the author points out, it doesn't account for GLPs. At all.
So what happens to those kids? The ones who think in stories, in rhythm, in gestalts?
They get blamed, labeled resistant, or just behind. Because the curriculum isn't built for how they make sense of language.
And this ties into another huge problem the source flags. Brand first, understanding later.
Ah, the online coaching world, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Exactly. You see it everywhere, right? The prioritizing of branding, the look, the feel over genuine, deep understanding.
Those pastel carousels. The soft-focus selfies talking about authenticity.
That's the signal, yeah. It often values that aesthetic, that vibe, way more than, actual substance or rigorous knowledge.
And this creates that, what does the source call it? A parasocial feedback loop.
That's the one. Coaches put out these emotionally resonant sound bites. They feel true.
And people react. The likes pour in, the DMs, the bookings.
And the coach thinks, aha, I've got it right. They mistake that emotional resonance, that feeling of connection, for actual accuracy.
Which is dangerous when scaled up.
Hugely. Think about it. If a popular coach, someone with thousands of followers, is teaching something fundamentally wrong about GLP.
It's not just one person getting bad advice.
No. The source estimates it could be 50,000 instances of mispractice. 50,000 people potentially misunderstanding their own minds. That's systemic.
So when scripting gets called OCD, or metaphors labeled masking, or looping speech is seen as trauma, all without ever mentioning GLP.
What happens next? That's the crucial question the author asks. Do these coaches correct themselves? retract, rebuild their model?
Sure.
Or do they just double down because they're maybe too far in, too invested in the brand they've built to admit they got it wrong?
Because admitting error could burst the whole bubble, financially and reputationally.
Pretty much. When your authority comes from that parasocial trust, being wrong is a huge threat. There's often no external check, no real accountability.
Which brings us straight to credentials and standards, right? This idea of a false sense of safety. We see certified and we relax.
We do. We assume it means something rigorous, but the source draws this stark contrast.
Like with athletics. A USA track and field coach, they need ongoing training, right? Anatomy, biomechanics, injury prevention, evidence-based stuff.
Absolutely, because getting it wrong has immediate physical consequences. You could seriously injure someone.
But in the autism coaching space,
Well, the source describes credentials you can get from, like, a 397 Sargar Canva course, maybe 10 hours, asynchronous. You download a certificate.
and it's based on just vibes.
Sometimes it feels that way. And GLP itself, it's largely missing from the traditional helping professions too. Education, counseling, psychology, even speech therapy.
Which is often super functional for GLPs, but it's assumed to just disappear by adolescence. Or if it doesn't, it gets labeled pathology, not communication.
So when someone says they're certified, we absolutely have to ask, certified in what? By whom? Certified to do what exactly? Because often there's no real recourse if harm happens. No audit. No safeguarding. It's kind of the Wild West.
There are real-world consequences. These aren't theoretical. They're incredibly personal.
Devastatingly so. The author shares their own experience.
Yeah, decades I lost being effectively illiterate. It's powerful. The shame that settled in my bones.
And spending years in therapy chasing shadows through frameworks that just didn't fit. Trauma models, OCD scripts, dissociation labels.
Because nobody ever named autism or asked if their communication style might be gestalt.
Nobody asked. And think about that experience, then multiply it thousands of times.
Every parent told their kids joyful scripting is a compulsion to be stopped.
Exactly. Or autistic GLPs living in two minds, knowing their voice inwardly, but being told outwardly it's something broken.
And it even affects non-autistic people.
Yeah, the source mentions NT-GLPs, non-autistic gestalt processors, who might misdiagnose themselves with autism because it's the only available explanation that seems to fit their experience, even partially.
Because it's the only framework they've found that even gestures towards their reality.
Right. And this harm, this misunderstanding, it doesn't just fade away. The source says it calcifies. It hardens into part of who you think you are.
That's heavy. The idea that it becomes fixed, part of your identity, it really highlights the urgency here.
It does.
So let's pivot. What could good coaching actually look like? What's the positive vision here?
Well, the source says a good coach doesn't just train you. They study you.
Not to fix you, but to understand.
Your actual system, how you move, how you learn, how you recover, whatever the domain is.
The author gives some interesting examples, right? Like looking at Soviet biomechanics for sports.
Yeah, studying the Soviet greats for wrestling or track, not about ideology, but about their rigorous results-based analysis of movement, trusting the data over the myth.
And for autism work, looking beyond the usual names.
Right. Choosing Sukhareva as a root. Grunya Sukhareva, the Russian child psychiatrist from the 1920s whose detailed observations actually align incredibly well with modern GLP understanding. It's about finding the most accurate, observant foundations.
That's about deep study, rigor.
And citing your work like a forensics professional, the author says. It needs to be repeatable, verifiable, able to withstand scrutiny, not just based on feelings or popularity.
So good coaching means caring more about validity than virality.
Absolutely. You don't mistake that emotional resonance online for diagnostic certainty.
You honor the person's real linguistic pattern, their way of communicating.
Even when it doesn't fit neatly into your pre-scripted carousel post, especially then, because it's not just about the surface form, the script, or the metaphor. It's about what that form is holding, the meaning inside.
Which leads to this invitation to go deeper.
Yeah. The core message is GLP isn't just a quirk. It's not a tic or symptom.
It's a literacy.
It's a literacy. A fundamental way of processing and expressing language. And to misunderstand it, to tell someone their stained glass is just broken glass.
The author calls that colonizing.
It is. It's flattening something sacred to fit a simplistic branding framework. It's erasing a valid way of being.
So the call is to sort of decolonize our understanding.
Yeah.
By going to the actual roots.
Exactly. Understand the lineage. Peter set the stage, described it first. Present refined the lens on echolalia and GLP and autism, and Marge blank. She made it practical, teachable.
So the invitation for you listening, especially if you're a coach or clinician, is to seek out those original sources. Understand the real history in science.
You do.
So let's bring it back one last time, that contrast. In sports, bad coaching, physical harm. That's malpractice. There are systems. Injury reports, reviews, insurance.
Ways to acknowledge harm, however flawed they might be, because we accept the physical body matters.
But in this huge, unregulated online space of neurodivergent coaching, if you teach someone to doubt their own voice, their own mind,
There's no report, no audit, no second look.
there's another pastel post.
Just another pastel post. And the cost is immense. When you teach someone to distrust how they speak, when you call their language a tic or a trauma symptom, instead of seeing it as their truth carefully chosen.
That's not coaching. It's not support.
No, it's epistemic violence. Violence against knowing, just softened by branding and pretty slides.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. What if we committed collectively to reading GLP differently, not as something broken that needs fixing,
But as something beautiful to be understood.
as a design, not a dysfunction,
Yeah.
a system, not a symptom?
If we could do that.
Then maybe, just maybe, we'd stop asking people to get well by becoming someone else entirely.
And instead we could walk with them as they become more themselves, more truly themselves than they've ever been allowed to be.